Hi everyone! Welcome back to another live stream event. My name is Jessica. I am the Planetarium Director. And with me today we have Eli, who if you've been on a stream before, you probably know as our voice in the sky. I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Eli. I'm a physics student at UMD, and I also actually have a construction truck outside my house right now, so I'm going to mute myself until that stops.
Sounds good. So Eli is going to be manning the comment section and letting us know if you guys have any questions. So if you do have any, type them down in the comments and Eli will let us know. As a reminder, just remember that there is a bit of a delay between when we answer your question and when you're going to hear that answer. So give us a little bit of time. You can hear the sirens in the background for me now. Give us a little bit of time, and we'll have some time at the end of our stream as well to answer any questions we didn't get to. But also with us today is a new face for our streams. We have Jim Rock with us. You have a different title now, don't you? Director of Indigenous Programming? Yeah, so he is our Director of Indigenous Programming at the Planetarium. And so he's going to be telling us a little bit later about the astronomical and cultural kind of significance and background on May Day, which happened a few days ago on May 1st. But first, we're going to start out with our Stargazing Tonight segment, where we're going to show you all of the cool things that you can find up this month. So give me a second to get switched over to that. All right. So starting out, and I apologize for the sirens in the background. This was maybe not the best timing, but starting out, we are going to talk about the Eta Aquarius meteor shower that has been happening. So this has been going on since April 19th and will last until May 26th. But the peak of the meteor shower, when we're going to see the most, is happening right now. So this is a meteor shower that is produced by this dust debris left behind by Halley's Comet as it orbits the sun. And so every year we kind of move through this debris trail left behind by this comet, and this debris, as it enters our atmosphere, burns up and shines bright as that flash of light that we see as a meteor. And since we're moving through this kind of trail of a lot of debris, we see a lot of these meteors and hence meteor shower. And so the Eta Aquarius are peaking right now. They're best seen kind of right before dawn. So you can see here we're starting to see them at about 3:30 in the morning. So this is a case where you're going to have to stay up pretty late or maybe set an alarm and get up. But you should see a few dozen meteors per hour. You may see a little bit less though because unfortunately we are right near a full moon. And the light from the full moon is going to kind of outshine some of the dimmer meteors, and so you're only going to see the very brightest. But it is our meteor shower that's currently going on, so it's something fun to kind of look out for. Now, it's named the Eta Aquarius because it looks as if the meteors are coming from the region of sky associated with the constellation Aquarius. And so that's where the name comes from. And so that's going to be in the kind of east-southeast. So it actually is best to look kind of either north or south so that you can see that stream of the meteor as it's moving through the atmosphere. All right. Also, this month, we can see the International Space Station flying by quite a bit this month. I believe just about every night in May, we can see the ISS flying by here in Duluth. A lot of times it's happening very, very early in the morning, like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning, which is not necessarily when you'd like to go out. But what I'm showing here are a couple of dates that the ISS will be visible at about 9:25 p.m. And so that's a pretty good time to go out. And so what we're seeing here are the flight paths the ISS will take. And so you're going to look kind of southeast at 9:25, and you'll see this bright light fly across the sky, and that is the International Space Station. Now, if you're interested, if you're living somewhere other than Duluth or interested in other nights this month, you can always go to heavensabove.com, which I have linked in the video description. And you can use that to put in your location and see where the ISS is going to be any day this month. But that's definitely something fun to look out for this month. Now, our moon, we are just about at the full moon, which is going to happen on May 7th. May 14th will be our last quarter. May 22nd, the new moon, and May 29th is going to be the first quarter moon. And you can see here when the moon rises and sets, since it does appear in the sky at different times of the day, depending on what phase we're in. If you're interested in more about this, we actually did a show a few weeks ago all about moon phases. And so you can go find that and watch through it if you're interested in kind of what causes the moon phases and that sort of thing. All right, in May, all 5 of the planets visible to the naked eye are visible. In the evening sky, in the northwest, we can find Mercury and Venus. Now, Venus is going to be visible pretty much all month. Look kind of westish, right at sunset. The first bright point of light you see is going to be Venus. But then about mid-month, we'll start to see Mercury as well up in the sky. And it's a little bit harder to see because it's not as bright as Venus, but it is there as well. But what's really interesting, and you can see here the kind of orbits of the planets laid out, Venus is actually slowly making its way down towards the horizon, while Mercury is making its way up. And so on May 21st, the 2 planets are going to be very close together in the sky and then will pass each other. And Mercury will then be higher in the sky than Venus. And so around May 21st and 22nd is a good time to try and find Mercury, since it is going to be very close to Venus. And so hopefully it'll be a bit easier to kind of pinpoint where it is. All right, and then in the very early morning sky, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are visible. So this is kind of early in the month at about 3:30 in the morning. As we get later into the month, these will be visible a little bit earlier in the night, but these are still pretty early morning objects. And so all of these are going to be visible this month, early morning. But Jupiter and Saturn are also about to start their retrograde motion. And so Jupiter is going to start on May 14th and Saturn is going to start on May 11th. And what this means is typically over the course of weeks and months, we see Jupiter and Saturn, let me go back to the previous slide real quick. We see Jupiter and Saturn slowly move across the background sky towards the east. But when they enter their retrograde motion, they actually change directions and start moving west instead for a little bit. Now, the reason this happens is because as all of the planets are orbiting the sun, the planets closer to the sun move a little bit faster than the planets further away. So Earth is moving faster than Jupiter and Saturn, or Mars, as this graphic is showing us. And so what happens is every so often we actually catch up and pass those slower moving planets that are further out. And as we catch up and pass them, because of our vantage point as we're catching up and passing them, the planets appear to start moving backwards across the sky until we've kind of passed the planet and then it starts moving back the direction that it normally does. And so that's going to happen this month. As I said, Jupiter is going to start its retrograde motion on May 14th. And so you can see right here, it's going to start and it will be in retrograde until the end of September, or no, mid-September, I'm sorry. And then it'll start moving back the way it normally does. And Saturn, and so 2020 is right here, again, is going to start its retrograde motion on May 11th and last through mid-September before it switches back. And so that is what we can find up in the sky this month. And so a lot of interesting, fun stuff to see. A couple of other things that are happening this month. On May 7th, we have an additional launch of the Starlink satellites, which if you joined us, was it last week, Eli? I think it was last week when we talked about these. And so you can use that heavensabove.com to also see if the new Starlink satellites that are being launched in a couple tomorrow will be visible from where you are. They're really cool. You see it as this like string of lights moving across the sky. And then on May 27th, we have the first crewed Dragon launch that's going to be happening. So that's going to be really exciting as well. So that is Stargazing in May. We will be having a show next week going over specifically constellations that you can see. So you can join us then. Eli, do we have any questions?
Nope, nothing yet.
All right. Well, I will turn it over to Jim, who's going to tell us all about May Day, and I'm very excited for this, and so hopefully you enjoy it too. So Jim, take it away.
Amitake api. Chantewa stea na pechi usapido. Wambdi hayetu e maki apido. Oh, let me hit the translate button for you here. No, that's how my father spoke Dakota. This is our traditional Dakota greeting. I said, hello, my relatives. From a glad heart, I offer you my hand. It's a traditional greeting. And so I'm of the 7 Starfire nations, the Ocheti Shakoing Oyate. There are 4 Dakota, 2 Nakota, and a Lakota. 4, 2, 1, 7 refers to a constellation. And but I also teach archaeoastronomy, ethnoastronomy for a couple of courses, and that's the UMD Astronomy 1050, 1040. Wait, it's one of those, and it's called Native Skywatchers. But I'm also European in heritage, and over 40, oh wow, scary, almost 45 years ago, was learning a lot about the Babylonians, Sumerians, Egypto-Babylonian roots in mud brick tablets, and the stars, how they made constellations, how they measured calendars and time. And then, of course, that morphed in with the Greco-Roman. So we got about 5,000 or 6,000 years ago that merged into something 2,000 years ago. And then about 500 years ago, let me show you with these fingers here. If you have Egypto-Babylonian and Greco-Roman, it looks like the Spock Vulcan sign here, live long and prosper. But that came here to our hemisphere, which the European worldview calls the New World. So when you combine the Old World with the New World, you have these 4 large kind of cultural rivers, Egypto-Babylonian and Greco-Roman, combining with all we had going on in this hemisphere. I'm not going to talk much today about what we do in this hemisphere. So with all that indigenous intro, I'm mostly going to discuss what is this May Day thing? Why is it astronomically as well as culturally very important, symbolically, I would say. And my wife always says, keep it simple. And I said, what was that? Keep it symbol? Because she knows once you start to explain symbols, it seems not simple. But let's try to keep it simple. So I'll have first a little PowerPoint, a few images, and let's see if we can share the PowerPoint here. Let's see, share screen. Okay, Jessica, do you have a thumbs up for, is that making it through there? good. Okay. And I'll put mine full screen here also. All right. So there's our traditional baseball diamond. And in a baseball diamond, you know, you have the home plate and you have the three bases. And I like to use this to represent the year. Um, so spring equinox in the northern hemisphere anyway here is March 20th, give or take a day. This year it was March 19. So that's when the Earth is at home. And then across from the pitcher's mound there would be second base, the fall equinox. So we have two equinoxes and two solstices. So right now, between March 20 and June 22nd, let's say, sometimes June 23rd, we have May 1st, only about 5 days ago. That means the Earth right now is halfway between home plate and first base. Okay, and you can see the red arrow there. So the runner is committed to getting to first. What's really nice is there really isn't any stopping of the Earth. Uh, Earth doesn't get called out, and it stays in a nice, you know, somewhat circular run around these four positions. So for 2020, notice if I do the average versus 2020 here. It was March 19. The summer solstice will be June 20 this year. Fall equinox still on the 22nd of September, but that December solstice will now be the 21st. And this ties in with some things that Jessica just shared with you. In fact, we'll come back to that, but I made a note on my paper. So let's see if I don't ask me about that, Jessica. All right. Okay, so next slide here. So you know that the amount of day and night shifts through the course of the year, not only because, first of all, there is night because we're spinning day and night, night and day, but because we're also circling the sun. The sun is at the pitcher's mound. Now, I happen to, in this graphic, share this down here in the Twin Cities, but it could be at Duluth. The Twin Cities is 45 degrees north. Toby's Donuts at Hinckley is 46 degrees north latitude, and Duluth around 47. But basically, we have 14 and a half hours of day, 9.5 of night, right about now. And so here we have, not by proper distance, but essentially size, what used to be a baseball team, 9 planets, 9 players. Pluto means we really have 8 players, but you know, there's some other minor league players now, the dwarf planets, whatever. This is a soccer ball or a truncated icosahedron with the sun lined up. And I noticed that behind Jessica, she has a soccer ball with stars on it. So we could also think of the the sun as a star, and it's a sphere essentially, and so is the Earth. But you know, the planets seem to be moving out there like stars, but they don't give off their own light, nor does the Earth, of course. But let's think of the Earth circling our star the way baseball players run around the pitcher's mound, okay? Now, if we have 60 birthdays, we've hit 60 home runs. And 60 home runs would be 60 corners on a truncated icosahedron. A soccer ball has 60 corners. So again, 60 candles on your cake is 60 home runs around the sun. I hope you're still with me on this keep it simple. All right, so there is the sun as seen setting in the west from my nearest baseball diamond across the street from my house here. Now, I had this weird idea that if I just sewed some cloth soccer balls and put a balloon inside each one, so I have 90 seams, but I left one seam open so I could put the balloon in there. So these will become soccer balloons. And what you'll notice are there are 4 soccer balls of black and white. One that's the normal soccer ball, more white than black. One that's the opposite, more black than white. instead of black pentagons, I have black hexagons. And so the black pentagons become white pentagons. And then I also have 2 soccer balls that are black and white stripe with gray pentagons. So you'll notice if we applied those to the bases and home plate as such, you get home and second are the 2 equinoxes. And first and third are the 2 solstices, where you have maximum day, minimum night, and maximum night, minimum day. So which one of these is the winter solstice? Would it be first or third? Who's on winter instead of... Okay, third base. All right, winter solstice, when we have the most night in the northern hemisphere. Now, of course, while we above the equator are enjoying, the most nighttime for astronomers, we love that, even though it's cold and dark in the winter. Those south of the equator will be calling this December time the summer solstice. So our northern third base is the southern first base. And what we notice then is our spring equinox is their fall equinox and vice versa. So all over the planet, when it's 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, the sun rises exactly east, sets exactly west. And of course, it's not really the sun that's moving, but the earth that's moving 1 year around the sun. So I designed these cloth soccer balls so that students could hold them in a circle. If I have a class of, say, 20 students or even 365 students in a circle. And then the one that's mostly blue with the green, that represents the earth, because it's 72% salt water, 28% earth. Okay, so putting this in mind, the picture is the mound there is the sun. And so is that a baseball or a football? Which of course the rest of the world calls a football. We call a soccer ball. The answer is yes. It's a baseball, football / soccer ball. And that's the sun. Okay, so the sun is pitching light at us. Fastest fast balls, photons, at the speed of light. So here is in one of my astronomy classrooms where we play ball like this. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. Now, taking it to the Twins here, this was at a May 10th ball game about a year ago, maybe May 20, somewhere in there. I like to see that the Twins are M and S, Minneapolis and St. Paul. But I like to say that that stands for the moon and the sun. And then that river between them is actually the Milky Way. So, where does the Milky Way cross the path of the sun and the moon? Well, at 2 places. Gemini, Taurus is one place, Gemini being the Twins. And then the opposite side of that would not be the Gemini, Taurus, Orion nexus of the Milky Way with the ecliptic, but the Sagittarius, Ophiuchus, Scorpius, SOS on the other side. So what does a maypole have to do with any of this? Well, as I said, between spring equinox and June solstice is the halfway point. And when this pole is raised in Europe, you can go to the wiki site. I'll just skip on here a little bit, but there's a dance that has happened in Northern European countries. But I'm going to connect the dots and show you how it actually goes way back to Egypto-Babylonian times. But first, let's just look a little bit at this game here, this dance. Let's see if this will link properly. And play a little bit of this. And just kind of enjoy the movement. Take in the symbolism. See the astronomy. Think about the sun and the earth and the stars.
So I'm just seeing the page and hearing the music. I'm not seeing a video.
All right.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you might have to specify which window you want to screen share if it made a separate window.
Bring your window to the front. Oh, let's see. Did that do anything?
Not that I can see, no.
Not yet. Okay, well, I'll escape out of that, sorry. And so back to the PowerPoint.
And I can share this video link.
Yeah, you can share the link,
Yeah.
sure. So there are these young women actually wearing fairy wings, white dresses and fairy wings, holding these rainbow-colored streamers, maybe, from a pole. And they mostly go clockwise, and every now and then they stop, and a few of them, maybe 3 or 4, go counterclockwise. And then there's a group that is in the outer circle and another that takes an inner circle, and they weave back and forth so that the streamers cross. They cross and they also go down the pole. So thinking of the streamers crossing and going down the pole, all right, can you see this image now? Good, all right. You didn't get to see it moving, but this is another version with more dancers. These are graduates, I believe, of some university that decided the class of 2018 would, you know, several of them, I don't know if these are sorority members, whatever, would go out, and you could see how they line up in groups, and they take the ends and then they lift them up, and they again do a similar dance where there's an outer and an inner movement, and then they cross the streams. Sounds like Ghostbusters, but intentionally crossing the streams. And then they drop them down, and then they graduate and process out in groups of 4. And interesting. So what does this May Day banner tree symbol? They put a greenery in a circle at the top of this pole. What does all this have to do? Well, again, visible tonight. We just heard from Jessica which stars, planets, and so forth from Duluth, where we get our about 9 hours and 21 minutes of nighttime. You see where the sun appears here. Over there in Aries, coming into Taurus, we're still essentially where that red arrow is in Aries. And if I put the letters GTAPA for Gemini, Taurus, Aries, Pisces, like that. Okay, as seen from the Earth, the sun appears to be lined up between Taurus and Aries, and Aries and Taurus, something like that. The sun on May 21st, May 20th, let's say, that's a good date. The sun moves into the Pleiades, the heart of the bull, Taurus the bull. So we're only about what, 11 to 15 days, I guess, something like that. Here's another graphic that shows when the sun appears to move through these slices of the pie, the zodiac. Now, we should also point out there's a 13th slice up there, and that's Ophiuchus, the big guy with the snake in his hand. And that's between Scorpio, Sagittarius. But you see here in June, Gemini, where the twins are. So Orion is not a zodiac constellation, but Orion is between Taurus and Gemini. Orion with an O is across the baseball diamond from Ophiuchus with an O. Now, Ophiuchus does deserve to be a zodiac constellation. The sun goes through his foot for a brief time there in November, but the sun never moves through Orion. So officially, Ophiuchus is a zodiac 13th constellation, whereas Orion, the other O constellation, is not. But they are opposite across from one another, and they share a story in Greek that involves the snake and poison and death and resurrection and new life after death. And that's because for about half of the year, we can see Orion, and then we don't see Orion. For half of the year, we can see Ophiuchus, and then we don't see Ophiuchus. And so it's the secret of the underworld. Why do they go down into the underworld this nighttime where we can't see them? And again, if you look at this path here, you see that Orion would be between Gemini and Taurus, opposite across from Ophiuchus. And I just kind of end the show there. I'll need to not share this with you and hold up a couple items to finish this up for you here. It's at about 1:30, but it'll take me maybe 2 or 3 more minutes to show you. Let me close this out of the way. Hope that, let's see. Yeah. All right. So now you can see me, I guess. And I know this is not an obvious connection, but I hope I can make it such. I have my cat toy here because I'm out in the gazebo, which the cat thinks is his house. And this little cat toy, it's a colored snake-looking thing with some feathers on it, and it's on a pole. And you remember how that maypole, as they danced around, okay? So think about a snake on a pole, kind of in a helix, like the sort of a spiral. In fact, the rod of Asclepius is the one snake on the pole, whereas the caduceus is a pole, let's use my cane here, with two snakes. It's two snakes interwoven on a pole as opposed to one snake. And so I don't know if you can see this, but the caduceus is the symbol of Mercury. Mercury has wings, so we need to picture a couple of wings here. If I put my hands like that, two snakes on the pole with wings is the caduceus, symbol of Hermes or Mercury. And you heard Jessica say that Mercury is actually rising at the same time that Mercury or Venus seems to be falling in the sky relative to one another. And what's fascinating is in this hemisphere, Venus is associated with Kukulkan, which is the feathered serpent. So we again have the feathered snake idea. I said I wasn't going to go into this hemisphere, but okay. So it turns out that this symbol of two snakes on a pole is very ancient, 5,000 years ago. It's Babylonian. Try this word, mush. Mush, which sounds like mush, I guess, if you have sled dogs or you're thinking about your porridge or oatmeal. Mush is Sumerian for snake. And it turns out there's another word when you describe this snake further. See if I can pronounce this somewhat properly. Mushush, mushush. And that actually means something like a red snake or a fierce snake or maybe even a dragon. The mushush or mushushu was a symbol on the gate of Ishtar, which is the Babylonian Venus. So you have Venus associated with this ancient snake symbol. And Jessica had a great idea. You want to share with them what that was?
So if you've seen the animated movie Mulan, the little dragon is named Mushu.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Mushu, actually what I learned in Babylonian is dragon is shum and snake is mush. And so if you take that sound backwards, mush or shum, the snake becomes a dragon, the dragon becomes a snake. Well, here's what's interesting. Today, what we call the constellation Hydra is the largest constellation in the sky. It's a big water snake. Most of us probably know it as the one that Hercules had to defeat. It was supposed to defeat Hercules, but every time he cut off one of the 9 heads, 2 heads would grow back. But in the upper sky is this dragon known as Draco, all right, up there between the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. And it was actually in Draco, the dragon, 5,000 years ago, that the star known as Thuban, which means snake, was the North Star. Picture, if you will, that North Pole stretched out to the sky, is now pointing to that snake star in Draco. Remember, a snake is a dragon if you give it wings. And then down around the ecliptic is this largest constellation, and it was way back in Babylonian times, and that was Hydra. Well, Hydra also is connected with the Hydra Hercules family of 20 constellations. That's a lot of stars telling a story. And meanwhile, well, okay, let me not go there. One of those 20 constellations is Ophiuchus, and another is Serpens. Remember the big snake-holder guy opposite across from Orion. So Ophiuchus and his snake is also associated with Hydra, and possibly also with that big dragon snake in the North Celestial Pole. You have basically 3 snake dragon symbols that tell you something about where the 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices, home first, second, and third, cross. And what's really interesting is if Virgo is also there alongside that Hydra serpent, you have the Virgin, the female, the symbol of life carrying, umbilical cord. That's a Mother Earth, soon to be mother. And in the springtime, this is when only in May and June can you see the entire Hydra constellation from the northern hemisphere. But you can also see Virgo in March and April. If you can see Virgo, the female, in March and April, and then the giant water snake in May and June, connect those 2 together and you get a maypole dance. And so those streamers are actually crossed serpents on a pole, much like the caduceus. Not to be confused as American medicine did about 150, 200 years ago. They should have used the single snake on a pole, the rod of Asclepius, the healer, the medicine. What they did is they connected it with Hermes or Mercury or Thoth. Thoth was the Egyptian god of wisdom and death. So basically, you have death and life with a tree. And when that tree sprouts new vegetation, it comes to life in the northern spring, right? And we celebrate the fertility and the, birds and bees. The birds are returning, and we plant our seeds after about May 20 here when the frost-free time. But then when the fall time, when those leaves fall off, and we see that the tree of life is going through its underworld death time. But we don't despair. We've hopefully stored up enough food to make it through the cold, dark winter. And so that's how I connect baseball to maypoles. And thank you. My name's Jim Rock, and hope to come back again if that wasn't too weird.
Oh, that was awesome. Thank you so much,
very good.
Jim. So
Questions, Eli?
yeah, let's give people a couple of minutes if you have any questions to type them out in the comments. Eli will check that, although I know Eli needs to leave pretty soon.
Yeah, I got a little bit left.
And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully, yeah, we always love to have Jim give his presentations. I swear I learn something new every time I talk to him. He's amazing. And I'm not just saying that because he's right there. But while we wait and see if any questions come in, I will go ahead and tell you about our upcoming shows. And so Saturday, we're going to be doing a show about the Northern Lights, the aurora, and tell you all about some of the mythology behind them, the science behind why it happens, and give you some tips for maybe viewing it yourself. Next week, on Wednesday, we are doing another edition of Constellation Storytime. And so we'll tell you all about what constellations are up this time of year in May and some of the stories behind them. And then next Saturday, we're going to be doing a show all about telescopes. And so it's a beginner's guide to telescopes. We'll give you our recommendations for a good beginner telescope, some tips on getting set up and how to use it, and then some really cool things that you could look at this summer through it. So that's all coming up over the next week and a half. We've also been asking for feedback from you guys because we'd like to hear from you, our viewers, what is going well, what you're enjoying in the shows, any advice or feedback you have on things that maybe you'd like to see, changes you'd like, if this time of day is working. So we do have a post on our page asking for that feedback. If you wouldn't mind taking a few minutes and looking through that and letting us know how we're doing, because we're doing this for you. We want to make sure that, you know, what we're doing is what you would like to see. And so I've seen that. Didn't you bring that out at Halloween?
Yeah, I think so. This is the skeletal, you know, a constellation with a few stars. There are 20 major stars in Hydra, but that's just the backbone. You could see, I don't know, 130. Plus, there's some really great, you know, galaxies and clusters and awesome things in Hydra. So anyway, yeah, a constellation is kind of just the bones until you flesh it out.
I like that analogy. All right, Eli, did we have anything come in?
Nope.
No? All right.
Mm-mm.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. As usual, this stream and any past ones, if you'd like to go back and watch it again or see anything you missed, can be found on our YouTube page or channel. And so, yeah, thanks again for joining us and have a great day. And we will see you next time.
See
Bye,
you all. Thanks,
everyone.
both. Live long and prosper.